Hi, everybody. This is Stan. Just adding a little bit to the front of the recording of today's meeting because I want to apologize for not recording the whole entire meeting. And we will join the meeting when Jay is talking about COVID-19 in our pets and other animals that he mentions, even cheetahs, which you can ask him about. So again, my apologies joining Jay at the front of his talk about COVID-19 in our pets. Thank you.
Well, with respect to COVID, I'll just call it COVID. That's the easiest name I think to use. So I think your chance of getting it from a dog is really low. Virtually zero from the dog catching COVID to giving it to you, and not too far off of zero from even if you see somebody's dog out and you pet it. Hair tissue is pretty fibrous and porous, so it doesn't really act as a very good fomite. So things like door handles and countertops and things like that. Packaging sometimes probably acts as a better fomite. So your chance of getting COVID from a dog, really, really low, most likely, unless something else comes up that we don't know about. So if somebody's got a happy, friendly dog that walks by you on the street, pet it. In cats, so coronavirus is pretty ubiquitous in the feline, in domestic cats, not COVID, but feline coronavirus. Essentially, you just assume that most cats have it or have had it. And especially if they've been outside any considerable amount of time, they probably have. Most cats will be asymptomatic. So you're not going to know that they ever had it. They kick it. And again, like dogs, they can have some upper respiratory issues. Usually it's enteric, so feline enteric coronavirus. So if anything, they'll get mild clinical signs. Some species of cats, so all the coronavirus that we commonly see in cats, some species, it can affect other felids. So cheetahs seem to be susceptible to a lot of the worst side effects of it. And that's probably because, my guess would be, cheetahs, if you don't know, they don't have much genetic variability. At some point in the past, there was a huge die-off. It's thought to be there was a huge die-off of cheetahs. So they're a little inbred, if you will. And that kind of sets them up sometimes to be susceptible to certain things. The one kicker I will say with cats, and fortunately, and I'm going to knock on some hardwood here that we don't see this in people, and we don't see this in dogs. They get a thing which is commonly referred to as FIP. It's a multisystemic inflammatory vascular disease that they basically, it just infects their whole body. And there's kind of two forms of it, but it can do a lot of things. So it's essentially 100% fatal. If a cat gets FIP, it's gonna die. And it's been that way for years since I've been in veterinary medicine, which is over 20 years. FIP cats. And what happens is, or at least what's thought to happen, is that they get this coronavirus. Coronaviruses are RNA viruses, so they mutate more so than other viruses. Take a virus like rabies, and it's pretty stable. Polio is pretty stable as a virus. Coronaviruses typically are so-so in that department. And so it's hard to get a vaccine, and we'll talk a little bit about vaccines in general. But but when they're mutating in all of your cells, when DNA or RNA replicates, there are mutations. There are a lot more mutations when RNA replicates than when DNA replicates. So you're going to just see changes, and whatever change happens to that particular cat, that coronavirus goes throughout its body. Fortunately, today, when cats get this, they're not infectious. So that cat dies, but it doesn't spread this mutant coronavirus that kills off all the cats in the world. And hopefully it will stay that way. And we were really excited. So when you see a cat and you've diagnosed it with FIP, I mean, in my world, I'm going to be telling the owners that their cat's going to die and there's nothing you can do. So it's a pretty crummy disease. About 4 years ago, I want to say the study came out in 2016. They used a drug called remdesivir in cats, and it, so far that I know, they've still cured about 80 or 90% of the cats that got it. And that's something that you'll see. It's one of the drugs that's circulating around. And it was originally designed as a drug for another virus with high mortality, Ebola. We used to have a vaccine for FIP specifically in cats, and it's no longer on the market, and it's not on the market for a couple of reasons. Number one, it doesn't work, or I don't think anyone ever could show that it worked. Just by a show of hands, and I'll flip through, how many of you have heard of antibody-dependent enhancement? Hand up, no.
There's one.
All right, got money. All right. Cool. Got to flip to. So antibody-dependent enhancement, what that is it's kind of a weird concept, but I'll explain it and maybe it'll make a little sense. So if you have had an exposure to a virus, in this case, coronaviruses are known for this. And one of the reasons they're known for it is one of the studies that found out about it was in cats in the 70s. They took antibodies from a cat that had cleared coronavirus, gave it to a cat that had never had it before, then gave the cat coronavirus, and more cats died from FIP than that had the antibody than didn't, and they were clinically ill faster. And so you're like, well, they got some protection, so why didn't it slow down the coronavirus? And what happens is that antibody helps to trigger the body's macrophages, or one of their white blood cells, to find the coronavirus, but that's actually one of the cells that it invades. So it's your body's basically trying to find the virus to help, and it's helping it replicate in that for that reason. So that's, if you hear that, that's what that means. And so it's been a challenge in coronaviruses in cats on the making a vaccine. To my knowledge, the FIP vaccine was never shown to have done that. However, it was suspected to have. And that's one of the reasons why it went off the market. Most people didn't believe it worked, and or would make it actually more likely to cause the cats to have FIP. So I think knowing that coronaviruses do this, and it's kind of common for them, it's going to make the vaccine production a bit challenging and dicey. Well, and we may never have a vaccine for it. I mean, that's something you hear on the news, but the reality is we may have a vaccine that it makes it worse better rather than the other way around. I also think that it makes it tricky for giving people antibodies. And I think that when they're already sick, and 99.99% of the time when you would get antibodies, you would get them because you try to help somebody who's sick. But sometimes they give antibodies to help prevent, and I don't think that's something that you'll be able to see with COVID, because I think, in my opinion, the risk would likely be that you could get that. So cats and COVID, well, we're not talking dogs here. Cats actually can get it relatively easily. And they've been shown to spread COVID to other cats. So we know cats can get it, and we know they can transmit it at least to other cats. So do you have to worry about your cat? Probably not. I mean, if you have somebody that came down with COVID-19 and you wouldn't go to their house anyway, because you would want to stay away from them. But cats and ferrets seem to be a little more likely in their ability to get it. And both of those species, to my knowledge, nobody's looked to see if ferrets actually spread it, but I would think that it's likely that they can. Feral cats, outside cats, the only one I would worry about those is if and I see this semi-often, not that often, but occasionally I'll see a cat, and then about a month later, somebody will bring that cat back in as a stray cat because they want to get it updated on its vaccines. And that cat has found that there's more than one food bowl in the neighborhood, so they kind of bounce around. So if you have one of those cats, I would probably pet it. You might hand sanitize afterwards, but I probably wouldn't snuggle up. The good part is most of those cats don't want to snuggle up anyway. They just want to eat your food and go about their business. So I think the chance of cats or ferrets being a likelihood of spread is really low too. People are what you have to worry about. I think that's the key. The last little thing I wanted to just chat quickly about, and many of the drugs and things that they're using for COVID, it isn't really something that we use in veterinary medicine much. However, there are a few drugs, and hydroxychloroquine is one of them. Now, it's very rarely used, so you would probably have to be speaking with a specialist to get hydroxychloroquine scripted out by a vet. Prior to COVID, most veterinarians, myself included, hadn't really used it, and that's likely still the case. The only thing that I know of its use for is lupus in dogs, so an autoimmune disorder. There was something about ivermectin, I don't know, maybe a month or two ago. The problem is with ivermectin, the doses they were using, ivermectin has a lot of side effects in itself. So, it would be, and they did this in a petri dish. So it blocked coronavirus, but in a petri dish and at about 100 times the dose you would normally take. So I think the chance of ivermectin being a smoking bullet is really low, because I think you're going to get more side effects from it than you're going to get from actually, or any benefit from it helping. But I do think that this remdesivir is likely to be one that'll help. And I hope that and there are a couple other analogs or really similar drugs to it. And I just say that because I think, it was interesting to see a drug kind of come out of nowhere for coronavirus in cats for a disease that we don't have a cure for. And I really hope it does for the people that it could save, but also for the cats that it could save if it were to be. But it's not going to be a miracle. The cats, I think on average, got injected with it about 170 times. So you're gonna have to love needles if treating people with this drug is the same as treating cats. So that's all I've got. I just wanted to put that out there because like I say, we've had a few coronaviruses and in cats and dogs. At least that's where I live in the veterinary world. So, any questions? All right.
You're unmuted.
What's that?
Kim?
Jay, have you found that we've had any of those here in Dare County? Or are you just saying in general?
Run that one by me again.
Are those COVID cats in Dare County, or is it just in general you're talking?
I don't know of any COVID cats in Dare County. To my knowledge, only a few. Now, we have the ability to test them. So I could get a swab and send it to one of our reference labs. They have the antigen test, not the antibody test. But I think in my mind, that would be the only situation in which it would be reasonable to test a cat. Would be if someone, for contact tracing, if they couldn't find out where people are getting the corona, or if somebody has one of these cats that kind of bounces around and all of a sudden it becomes sick, they might want to know for their own, But then the problem is they have to actually bring it in, and put it in their car. So my take on COVID testing in pets is that it's out there and probably should be done in conjunction with Department of Health and Human Services type organizations, and not just on someone's pet. And I don't think I haven't seen any here. Knock on wood.
Nobody's brought you any squirrels?
Well, interestingly enough, and the plague is and has been forever, as far as I know, in the Southwest United States and like Colorado, Wyoming, and it's very common in prairie dogs out there. But it's also common in cats that fight rodents and eat them. And a lot of times they'll get those abscesses, the buboles, that is where the bubonic plague name came from. So I want to say about 4 or 5 people a year die from plague in the United States. And that's been the case for a while. Many of them are in veterinary medicine, unfortunately. Veterinarians and veterinary staff, because they treat these cats with the abscesses and think that it's just a cat bite when it's the zebra, it's the odd thing, and they catch the plague and get too sick before they find out what they're dealing with. Because most of the plague's actually treatable, knock on wood, most of the time.
Yeah.
Antibiotics will cure it.
Well, my cat only eats salmon pate, so I guess he's safe.
There you go.
Cool.
I tried to feed him a rat. He'd look at me like I was crazy.
Well, that's good to hear.
Baby. He's picky.
Really, I was just looking for an excuse to shoot the squirrels that are eating my tomatoes.
Well, squirrel season doesn't open up until November, Stan.
Stephanie?
Go ahead, Stephanie.
Unmute.
He is
You're on.
Can't hear you, Stephanie.
Not talking.
Can you unmute her, Stan? There you go. Oh, there you go. Just keep it there.
Okay. Yeah, occasionally the cat will get out. We try and keep her inside. The other day I noticed she had a dead chipmunk in her mouth. Are those also iffy?
So on the,
Are those sprayers?
we're in the wrong part of the world for the plague. So it likes it dry. And most of the East Coast, really, even the Midwest, is too humid for it to survive very well. So you're safe from the plague.
Good to know. Good to know.
Well, our cats just never get out of the house at all.
I just lost Zoom. Just lost it.
We can see you. So
You're back.
Oh.
All right.
I get back.
Well, hearing no other questions, before we go, does anybody have anything else for the club?
Are we meeting?
John Polk has a Rotary mask.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, the Rotary mask came in last week. I've got 10 left. Mike Smith came and beat me over the head for one, so I've only got 10 left, one for myself. So I'll have those at the meeting next Wednesday. So if anybody wants one, just let us know. I'm going to cover the cost of these, but if you'd like a mask, I'd ask that you go ahead and throw some money into either the cart cups or make a donation to the foundation, First Light Foundation. So I'll have 10 at the club. If we want more, I'll order some more. I mean, they're decent quality. I think they're 3-ply, but they're, yeah, not bad at all.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely be there next week and would love to have one. So, all right.
I just, by next meeting, we should have out there, put a booster for the Wi-Fi in the meeting room. And also, we will have a backup with hotspot.
Okay.
We'll have that, and we might have some other. The biggest thing that will help from what I've learned this week is getting a remote mic, so that we have sound quality. If we can fix the sound quality, people will be able to listen, even if the video quality isn't 100%. Have to get the sound quality right.
Good. We'll catch up. I'll do some searching, and then I think John said he would help look, but we'll all three get together and try to work out some of the equipment issues. I would say Rob, but Rob's got a lot on his plate right now, as we're like 1 week out from him being a dad ×2. So I think he's just gonna be a dad and sleep.
Yeah, so everybody's okay at that household, right?
Yeah, as far as I know, all is well.
Yes.
So, all right, well, let's end then with the 4-way test. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And adjourn with our motto:
Service above.
Service above.